Good evening, everyone. Welcome to NTD Tonight. I'm David Zhang. Here are some of today's top stories. The Supreme Court today heard oral arguments on whether or not former President Trump has presidential immunity from criminal prosecution. The New York Court of Appeals overturns the sex crimes conviction against Harvey Weinstein. Find out why and what's next. Protests continue on university campuses across the country. A Southern California school joined in, leading to several arrests and a graduation ceremony canceled. First up, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments today over to what extent former President Trump enjoys presidential immunity from criminal prosecution. Trump's lawyers argue that without immunity, politically motivated prosecutions of former presidents would become routine.
The implications of the court's decision here extend far beyond the facts of this case. Could President George W. Bush have been sent to prison for obstructing an official proceeding or allegedly lying to Congress to induce war in Iraq? Could President Obama be charged with murder for killing U.S. citizens abroad by drone strike? Could President Biden someday be charged with unlawfully inducing immigrants to enter the country illegally for his border policies? The answer to all these questions is no.
Trump's lawyer highlighted that no president has ever been prosecuted for his official acts, and that former presidents are entitled to absolute immunity for their official acts. They say presidents couldn't function as commander-in-chief if they had to worry about criminal charges, and that every current president will face de facto blackmail and extortion by his political rivals while he's still in office. Trump is in court in New York for his so-called hush money trial. Judge Juan Merchant denied his request to attend the Supreme Court hearing. He spoke about the immunity case this morning.
The argument on immunity is very important. The president has to have immunity. This has nothing to do with me. This has to do with a president in the future, for 100 years from now. If you don't have immunity, you're not going to do anything. You're going to become a ceremonial president.
A major issue at play is what counts as an official act and what counts as a personal act. The justices asked Trump's lawyers for a list of hypothetical acts as examples. The Supreme Court is expected to release its decision by the end of June. More updates on the anti-Israel protests on college campuses. Police arrested hundreds of protesters at colleges across the nation last night. 108 people were arrested at Emerson College in Boston. 4 officers were injured in the process. The school said the student encampment violated city law. Police arrested 93 people at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. This ended the protest, and the campus remains closed until further notice. 34 people were arrested at the University of Texas at Austin. At least 2 professors detained during Emory University protests. But anti-Israel protests continue to spread to more college campuses. According to NBC News, there are student encampments at 20 campuses across the country. They're now showing up in George Washington University in Washington, D.C., New York City's Cornell University, and Northwestern University in Illinois. Meanwhile, in Paris, dozens of students protested outside of Sorbonne University, where French President Emmanuel Macron was making a speech today. Surrounded by riot police, protesters said they hope to have the same impact as students demonstrating in the U.S. The Biden administration is giving Micron up to $6.1 billion in grants to help build its semiconductor plants in New York and Idaho. A senior administration official says Micron is set to open a facility in Boise, Idaho by 2026. Another one will open in Clay, New York 2 years later. The funding for this project comes from the Bipartisan Chips and Science Act, aimed at boosting domestic manufacturing of semiconductor chips. A total of $29 billion in grants have already been awarded to companies like Samsung and Intel. The microchips produced will be used to power a variety of essential products, including smartphones, satellites, and artificial intelligence systems. The New York Court of Appeals today overturned the sex crimes conviction against Harvey Weinstein and ordered a new trial. The disgraced Hollywood producer was convicted in 2020 of first-degree criminal sexual act and third-degree rape. He was sentenced to 23 years in prison. But according to the appeals court, certain testimony shouldn't have been included in the trial. It said testimony about prior alleged sexual acts portrayed Weinstein in a prejudicial light. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office says it plans to retry the case and remains committed to survivors of sexual assault. Regardless, Weinstein still isn't a free man. Last year, he was sentenced in Los Angeles to 16 years in prison for charges of rape and sexual assault. The University of Southern California announced its campus would have restrictions following a large anti-Israel protest that ended with nearly 100 individuals being apprehended. NTD's Christina Corona has more from the university.
We're here in University Park down the street from USC, where hundreds of pro-Palestinian protesters crowded the school yesterday, resulting in 93 individuals being arrested for trespassing. Demonstrators, including many who were unassociated with the university, set up tents and demanded an end to the war in Gaza. Tensions rose when campus police requested removal of the tents, which violate campus regulations. Officers in riot gear dispersed the crowd following a 4 p.m. order. No injuries were reported.
The university is a private campus, and the group had been violating some of their orders, and it was a trespass at that point, and we assisted with those arrests.
USC's Department of Public Safety responded by announcing campus closure on X. The protest on the UPC has ended. However, the campus remains closed until further notice. Students, faculty, staff, and people with business on campus may enter with proper identification. One resident said,
I noticed right away that how important it is that we American citizens, voting citizens, raise our voices in demonstrations, especially when it comes to our government funding countries that are in need a lot of weapons.
While visiting the campus, he observed the heightened security.
The campus was not that filled with students. Students were running around. I noticed immediately I was in eye contact with a security officer across the crossing, 100 meters away. And he already noticed that I'm not a student from USC campus, and I was asked for my ID, and of course I showed him my ID, and it was no trouble.
This demonstration comes after the university's controversial decision to exclude pro-Palestinian valedictorian Osna Tabassum from speaking at commencement due to allegations of anti-Semitism. The school cited concerns for her safety and expressed the need for prioritizing community protection over freedom of expression. Following the heated protest, USC announced Thursday their main graduation ceremony, which brings in 65,000 friends and families, will not be held. The school plans to release more details about commencement no later than April 30th. Authorities said anyone arriving on campus will have to show proper identification. The LAPD said patrols will be visible around the campus Thursday and Friday. Christina Corona, NTD News, Los Angeles.
We'll take a short break now, everybody, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come back. California high school students witnessed the aftermath of a simulated car crash. Public safety officials teach them the dangers of drunk driving. New butterflies are being introduced to a park in San Francisco. Why are researchers focused on this one specific species? A multi-billion-dollar football stadium is in the works in Chicago. It's expected to be more than just the training ground for the Chicago Bears. Those stories and more coming up on NTD Tonight. Welcome back to NTD Tonight. I'm your host, David Zhang. With the junior and senior proms coming up, high school students witnessed the aftermath of a simulated car crash in California. That football field was transformed into what could happen from drunk driving. NTD's David Lamb brings us there. And just a warning, some of the following footage and audio may be distressing.
emergency? What are you reporting?
Hi, me and my friends just got into a car crash.
Okay. Where are you at?
We're in Castro Valley.
So the Every 15 Minutes program is administered statewide by CHP, and it's a grant-funded program by the Office of Traffic Safety. And basically what it is a stark reminder to the students that though it's prom season and summer's coming up, and kids will do what kids will do, it's just a reminder that one bad choice can lead to disaster. So in this instance, it would be losing a life to a drunk driver.
On Thursday morning, students of Castro Valley High School in Northern California watched and participated in this demonstration.
We have all this rideshare capabilities, and we encourage these kids to use that. Use the Uber, use the Lyft, get home safe, call your parents. Don't drink and drive. It'll not only affect their resumes and their future, but it'll also affect the community that they live in.
The school partnered with California Highway Patrol, Alameda County Fire Department, and other first responders. It's a 2-day simulation focusing on high school juniors and seniors.
Now, Officer Musselman said this is a really elaborate demonstration. These cars have actually been involved in car accidents and had to get towed here by a tow truck. They really want to make this really elaborate for students to get a good picture of bad decisions and drunk driving.
Even a small amount of blood alcohol level can result in a DUI.
So if you have a high BAC, you take a 5-hour nap, you're still well above the legal limit. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. We see that out on the road when we're arresting impaired drivers and they say, I'm okay, I swear. We believe that you think you're okay. However, you're not okay to drive. And that's why these crashes happen.
And this school's prom is being held this weekend.
If there's a lot of peer pressure on kids to do certain things, be safe, go to the dance, have lots of fun. You're never going to get this time back, right? So really enjoy, dancing and being with your friends. Also just encourage them to be safe. There's a lot of after parties, communicate with some parents and find a safe space to go and enjoy your prom and try not to go out there and drive.
Local police say the program's name came from the stat that in the early 90s, every 15 minutes, someone in the U.S. died in an alcohol-related crash. That number is now 1 in every 30 minutes.
Now, one of the students told me that she grew up knowing these students that were participating and that it triggered an emotional response, very emotional, very sensitive. Now, earlier when the event just started, the entire bleachers went quiet, and you could tell that this captured the attention of the students, which is exactly what the program is intended to do. Now, on Friday, they're planning to hold a mock funeral to continue the Every 15 Minutes program. Reporting in Castro Valley, David Lamb, NTD News.
Researchers are bringing in a relative extinct species of butterflies to a San Francisco park. They hope the colorful bugs will fill the ecological role.
California's Academy of Sciences is repopulating sand dunes in San Francisco's National Park with a relative of the extinct Circe's blue butterfly. The Circe's blue was believed to be the first butterfly species in the U.S. to go extinct from habitat loss caused by human development.
They were abundant in the sandy habitats around the city, living on deerweed and other plants in the area, and we successfully eliminated 100% of their native habitat.
The iconic butterfly, whose name inspired the Circe Society Conservation Group, went extinct in the 1940s. 80 years later, the current reintroduction was made possible after the restoration of the Presidio's native dunes and research to identify the Circe's blue's closest living relative.
And so we were looking at our collections here, and we're able to use modern technology, genome sequencing, to go back and extract genomes from these extinct butterflies that are over 100, 150 years old. And we're able to compare them with modern populations of the blue butterflies all over the Bay Area.
3 years of research confirmed a group of silvery blues about 100 miles south of San Francisco could successfully fill the ecological role left by the Circe's blue.
And so we found a thriving population that was totally capable of donating a few individuals to establish a new population. So this is a new beachhead for silvery blues, and they're standing in the big shoes of Xerxes.
Researchers from the Academy got permission to gather butterflies in Monterey County and transport them to San Francisco. The team will continue to track their movements using high-resolution photographs to identify their markings.
Now we turn to sports, where the Chicago Bears have unveiled the plans for a new $3.2 billion stadium to replace the historic Soldier Field. NTD's Carlos Reyes has the details.
After playing at Soldier Field since 1971, the Chicago Bears plan to build a new multi-purpose stadium just south of their current home. Bears president Kevin Warren unveiled plans Wednesday for the franchise to build a lakefront stadium with a fixed roof and a 20% increase in green space on the museum campus outside the stadium for visitors to enjoy. Warren said the new stadium will allow the Bears to hold more concerts and events and give them a chance to bid on hosting a Super Bowl. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson shared his thoughts on the Windy City's newest project.
My administration insisted that any new project, especially one on public land, must deliver strong public benefit and public use for the entire city of Chicago. And I am pleased today that this plan does exactly that.
The goal is to get approval during the current legislative session with shovels in the ground by the summer of 2025 that could allow a stadium to open by 2028, Warren said. Sports fields and gardens will replace Soldier Field, with the stadium's historic colonnades preserved as a tribute to Chicago's military veterans. The Bears will continue playing at Soldier Field while the new stadium is under construction. The entire project is expected to cost $4.7 billion. That includes $3.2 billion for the stadium itself, $300 million for the infrastructure required to open it, and $1.2 billion for 2 other phases. Bears ownership will contribute $2 billion towards that proposed cost. Karen Murphy, the Bears executive vice president of stadium development and COO, said the club will apply for a $300 million NFL loan as part of the private investment plan. Johnson said the project will not result in new taxes on the city's residents. While the capacity for the new stadium will be similar to Soldier Field with 65,000 seats, the plan is to include more standing room only options. The first phase of the Bears project is the stadium, followed by adding infrastructure to the surrounding campus in Phase 2. Phase 3 is optional infrastructure to enhance the campus, improve circulation, and maximize public economic benefits. They project the building of the surrounding infrastructure will take 5 years after the stadium's completion.
This is a year-round project. Ice skating in the winter, to have our citizens, not only in Chicago, but around the state of Illinois, to be able to use this area.
Project plans include improving access to the museum campus near the stadium with better infrastructure and adding public restrooms and food and beverage options for park users. The Bears last underwent a major renovation on Soldier Field 20 years ago and previously planned to move the team to the suburbs north of Chicago. Carlos Reyes, NTD News.
Today, 25 years ago, 10,000 practitioners of Chinese mind and body practice, Falun Gong, gathered peacefully in Beijing. This has been seen as the trigger of the brutal suppression. What happened and how it developed to the forced organ harvesting? Watch our NTD special this Saturday, and here is a preview.
The world first heard of Falun Gong 25 years ago. On April 25, 1999, 10,000 Falun Gong practitioners gathered in front of Zhongnanhai, the home and office compound of the Chinese leader. The spiritual meditation practice teaches the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance, and was first released to the public in China in 1992. 7 years later, it had growth so popular that the Chinese Communist regime deemed it a threat. 3 months after that peaceful demonstration, Beijing launched an all-out persecution against the faith, seeking to eradicate the 100 million people practicing.
I said, this is a Buddhist revival movement. I don't see that as this massive threat. So there was something else going on.
Those practicing Falun Gong inside China were fired from their jobs, kidnapped from their homes, and thrown in prison. But later, evidence of an even worse crime started to come out to light. The forced organ harvesting of prisoners of conscience while they're still alive. Those organs going on to supply China's lucrative organs match and transplant market.
The organ harvesting is the genocide aspect. This entire organ transplant system was built on the backs of Falun Gong. This is something that's going to hit every group. It's going to hit the Tibetans. It's just a question of getting the right hospitals set up in their region. If there had not been the Ukraine war, if October 7th hadn't happened, that bill would have gone through.
Watch our interview with investigative reporter and Nobel Peace Prize nominee Ethan Gutmann this Saturday, April 27th on NTD's China in Focus.
Speaking of China, stay tuned for China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer coming up next. A Chinese student is sentenced to 9 months in prison over threatening an individual promoting democracy. More details coming tonight on China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And that's all we've got for you tonight. We'd like you to join us again on NTD Tonight every weekday at 9 p.m. I'm David Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.